Hello, welcome to this next Substance Pack tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to have a go at creating some a rubber smart material. I've looked around, I can't find many rubbers around for Substance, so I'm going to have a go at making my own, essentially. Okay, so first of all, before I get into that sort of thing, I'm just going to create myself a new library. So I'm going to go to Edit and Settings, and I'll call it John's Library. Well, just call it John's. I can give it a path. I'm going to put it on a disk that I've got some space on, because my C drive is not the most spacious at the moment. Let's go and find it. This PC, let's pop it in my storage, and I'll create a new folder, John's Library, or John's Lib in this case. Okay, so let's select that one. And I want everything I'm doing in this particular tutorial to go into this library. It's going to be my library where I collect things together. So I'm going to hit the plus to create that library, and then I'm going to set it to my default, so when I save an asset it will go to this library. And if I click OK, we're all done. Okay, so that's that. Now it's important to note, just a quick one, you can't do that while you're in a project. You have to do it, just while you're in the settings. It's locked otherwise. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to go to Open Sample. So File, Open Sample, and then I'll get the preview sphere up. There we go. And then I'll delete out all of these layers because I don't want them. There we go. Okay, so I want to blend two layers together, but I'm not ready to set the properties of those layers yet. But I'm going to create just two blank layers. One is going to be kind of greyish white, and one will be black, or very dark at least. Let's take that down to dark. Whoops, no, I want it the other way around. I want that one to be light, and this one to be dark. There we go. And now I want to create an edgeware mask, and I want to be able to reuse it and reuse it. So we're going to create it, and then we're going to save it as a smart mask. So I'm going to right click and add a black mask to this top layer, and then right click and add a generator, and I'm going to use the mask editor. There we go. So you see it comes in, and there is something on it. If I switch to the mask view, we can see we've got kind of a default setting for the curvature, and if I slide down to the curvature we can adjust it. So first of all, what I want is very tight to the edges mask, so I'm going to take out anything that's not in the top 2 or 3 options. So I've got soft here, which I'm going to just raise up a little bit. Sharp is good. That's up more than that. It's not going to do too much. And there's my very fine sharp edge at the top. So that gives me a really tight mask, which will pick up the edges. And if you want to extend it a little bit more, you can use some of these bigger ranges down the bottom to just extend it out gradually. But that's pretty much what I want for the moment. But I don't want it to be quite so even. I want to break it up. So to this we're going to add a texture. Let me just collapse the curvature and then enable texture opacity, and you'll see it goes black because we need to define the texture. So if we go down here to image inputs, I can go and switch to my library here, and then we'll pick one of these to break it up. So what should we try? We can try all sorts. I want something kind of spotty, kind of broken. Let's try clouds 1. So if I drag that into there, you'll see that now quite nicely breaks up those edges, so they're not quite so uniform. And of course, under the textures we could update it. We can take down the balance, we could take it right up. There we go, somewhere around there. Also we could harden it by increasing the contrast. or soften it by lowering the contrast. I think somewhere in the middle is about right for me. We also have some noise parameters, so we can increase the scale of the noise to make smaller details, or we can update the disorder to give it a more randomized kind of look. There we go. So I think that's pretty good, somewhere around there. And if I go back now to my material view, we'll see what happens. And now I can see I've got this sort of very dark black layer poking through the white layer underneath, which is pretty much exactly what I want. So I might want to strengthen that a little bit, and we can do that up at the top here. So we've got global contrast, global blur, global balance. So if I global blur it, you'll see it blurs very easily. If I take the balance down, you'll see I can either make it harsher or lighter depending upon what I want. I think somewhere around there. I want it to be quite harsh. I want there to be quite distinct. It was a little bit fluffy earlier. Or we can make it even sharper by increasing the contrast, and that's much more of a metallic kind of look, if you like. With paints being scraped off quite harsh edges. I'm going to take it down a little bit further than that, not right to the bottom I don't think, but just a little bit. There we go. So now I've done all this work to create this mask, I'd really like to save it. So if I click on the mask and then right click, we have create smart mask, and that will create me a smart mask. It will be called new mask. If I go up to my libraries and pick John's assets, we should see that that's where it is. So I can right click on there and I can rename it, and I'll call it MV tight edge. That's the one I want, something along those lines. Tight edge or tight edges. There we go. Now I can use that time and time again as many times as I want. Back to all libraries for some reason. Let's go to mine. There we go. Okay, so that's the first part. The next part will come in and we'll start to give the layers some properties to start to make this look a little bit more rubber like. So I shall talk to you then. Okay, so next then we want to just mess with our properties, make these a little bit more I guess rubber like. And if I switch to my starter assets, go to materials, let's take that filter off there. I'm just going to start with this plastic mat on the bottom layer. I'm going to change this to kind of a darkish grey, somewhere around there I think. There we go. And for the top one we'll do the same, but this time I want a lightish grey. I want there to be a difference between the two in terms of colour, so that the edges are worn away and it's showing a little bit of uncoated underlying material, shall we say. There we go. Okay, so we also need to change the roughness values here. So the roughness underneath, I want it to be rougher underneath. There we go. And then for the bottom layer, which is going to be largely the main material, I want to make this a little bit more glossy, just a teeny tiny bit, not too much. There we go. So that's not too bad, that looks okay. But the property of rubber that I notice is that it seems to have a lot of little pores in it. It seems to be not entirely smooth. So what I want to do is add a texture into our height map. So on the bottom layer we'll add height in as a channel, and then go to our materials, and this one I want a noise, specifically I want the white noise. There we go. So I'll drag and drop that into height, and then I'm going to get this all over kind of porous material. and we can adjust this a little bit or a lot. So I can change the balance, and that will reduce the instance of the pores. I can increase the contrast, which will make them more definite and less soft. There we go, somewhat along those lines. And if I'm looking at it, I think they're coming out rather than going in, and I want them to go inwards. So I'll invert that so that they are going in instead of out. Now that looks a little bit, shall we say, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit harsh. So what I want to do actually is, first of all, I'm going to change the scale of them to make them theoretically smaller, although they seem to be as small as they're going to get. If I just keep upping that, yeah, I think we're down to a pixel. So it's not much more we can do with that except make them, you know, more dense. We could try a different material, of course. Let's see if I can find another one that's a bit more suitable. Let's just try noise and have a look, see what we've got. Perhaps the black and white spots. How's that? Let's try this one here. Let's drag and drop that into it. And that looks awful, but we can improve it. So if I go down to balance, I can reduce the instances there. I can increase the contrast to make it a bit more patchy. Let's check the noise parameters. We can change the scale and disorder. And yeah, it kind of looks alright, but it's too much. Way too much. Let me start to adjust my balances. I don't want it to be patchy, I want it to be all over, so this one perhaps is not suitable again. So let's see what we've got. Try Gaussian. Let's just drag and drop that into the height channel there. And now, yeah, that's way too big, of course. So we can come down to the noise parameters and we can increase the scale. We can overblow it, I imagine. Yeah, it's going to have to be really overblown to get right down to where I want it. Perhaps even a little bit more. There we go, that's more like it. We've got our noise parameters there, so we can update the disorder. Yep. And our balance and contrast. So let's take the balance down a little, somewhere around there, and our contrast, just so it's not everywhere or completely everywhere, and we probably need to invert it to get it going inwards. Okay, that's a little bit better, but what I want to do is make that more subtle. So under the base color or under the layers, I'm going to change the height, and then I'm going to take that down until it's just about there. There we go. Okay, so one of the problems is this is going over our edges, which I don't want it to do. I want the edges to be more smooth. So all we need to do is go to the top layer, turn on height. We don't need to put anything in it, but I need to change the blend type, and I'll change that to normal. And now there should be less in those on those edges, on the really hard parts anyway. There we go. So there we have not a too bad a rubber. I might sort of have a look over it and start to perhaps update some of the what am I trying to say, update the scratches. Yeah, so add some scratches, you know, perhaps modify the roughness a bit to make it a little bit more you know, a bit more rubber like, and then we'll move on from there. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so we want to add another layer on top of this, which is going to be kind of a scratched layer. So we'll just do this very simply. I'm going to add a layer over the top so it's nice and white, and then right click and black mask, and then right click and add, let's just add a fill here. And I want something that's kind of messy, it's got a little bit of direction to it, something I can adjust to, you know, make it look good. Now I've got this filtered, so let's unfilter that. Make sure I'm on the right kind of place. There we go. So this is quite a nice one for this. If I drag and drop that over there, we'll see we get some kind of scratchy, nice, kind of messy, dirty bits. And I can tighten those up by increasing the contrast, because I don't want too much in the way of bleed out from the edges. We can adjust our balance down to make it more or less. Somewhere around there, I think. I would like triplanar on if I get that opportunity. That's up in the UV projection. We'll go triplanar. There we go. At least now it's all kind of directional. It's not this way and that, depending upon which way the UV is pointing. And what else do we want? Yeah, I think I'm good. I could adjust the tiling down here if I want to make them smaller and finer. We've got to rotate by 45 degrees if you want to, you know, have it at some sort of angle. Kind of looks better at 45 degrees, I think. Okay, so let's do some adjusting on our layer. First of all, we're going to make sure height is set to normal, so it overrides anything going on underneath it. And set the grey to somewhere close, or somewhere darker maybe. Let's go darker, just for fun. I want this to be quite rough, to be contrasted to, you know, the rest of our material. There we go. And actually, a little lighter, perhaps a little lighter. Nah, don't like it. Let's take it down a bit. There we go, somewhere around there. Okay, so what else have I got to work with here? I've got some channels that I don't want. I could bring those outwards with a little height. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Excuse me. And there you go. So let me go to my grunge layer, because I think it's perhaps a little small. I might need to just adjust a little bit. Take the contrast down and I'll get a little bit more. And now we've got a material. So I did say that I wanted to adjust my other bits, because this one, I think that the roughness is a touch too much. So I'm going to bring that up, make it a little flatter. I'm also going to darken the colour. Where's my colour? There it is. There we go, it's more like it. Yeah, quite happy with that. Okay, so that's a relatively simple material. I think this is a bit over much, so I'm going to just fade that down a little bit. Not on height actually, I can do that a different way. Perhaps base colour, let's bring that down just a touch. There we go. Okay, so that's a basic smart material. You know, we've done all sorts of things, and there we go. You know, we've made a pretty decent material. We've made a smart mask, and now I can save this as a smart material. So for the smart material, I need to group these together in a folder. So I'll just add a folder in there, drag and drop that up, and I'll call it rubber. and then right click on the folder and create a smart material. And now when I go to my John's library, there it is. That's the smart material I've got. So if I go there, I've got my rubber smart material, I've got my tight edges smart mask, and I'm ready to go and do another one. So I hope you found that useful. It's not the most exciting of materials, I know, but you know, every little helps. If you have any questions, comments, etc., give me a note in the comments below, and I'll talk to you again soon.